There is a path known only to those who walk it with silence in their steps and stillness in their soul. In ancient monasteries, high among the mist-covered mountains, the monks speak in riddles. They do not speak often. But when they do, they speak of moments in time, sacred windows that open briefly and only for the awakened. These are not ordinary days. These are divine markers hidden within the calendar. When the soul is tested, when fate delivers its signs, and when love either reveals or conceals its truth. One of these mysteries, whispered through bamboo forests and carried on the wind, is this. One, a man's heart begins to overflow. His mind plays the most subtle games, not to deceive, but to protect what he fears he could lose. Today, we unfold 6 psychological tricks men unknowingly use when they are truly, deeply, spiritually captivated by you, not through ego, through destiny. But beware, for these signs are not always visible unless your spirit is aligned with the sacred timing of the universe. From the 7th to the 13th, the winds of fate stir. From the 16th to the 19th, the shadows test your clarity. And between the 21st and the 25th, the door opens or closes forever. Let us walk together, not as strangers, but as seekers through the cycles of fate, love, and transformation. There are moments when the soul sees before the eyes do and feels before the heart fully understands. In these quiet spaces, before love is confessed, before closeness is spoken, the spirit begins its subtle dance. When a man is truly taken by the presence of a woman, when she stirs something ancient in him, he does not always respond with logic. Instead, something within him begins to shift, quietly, almost imperceptibly. The first sign is often not a grand gesture, but a quiet trick of the psyche, a gentle misalignment of words and actions, like the shadow of a bird that appears before the bird itself is seen. This is the whisper of intuition, the first thread of spiritual recognition that speaks louder in silence than in speech. A man in love may not announce his feelings clearly, but his soul begins to ripple outward, creating small disruptions in his behavior. He may pull back just as you move closer. He may delay his response, not out of pride, but out of fear. Fear that his emotions are writing a truth he is not yet ready to read aloud. Like the wind that stirs the leaves before the storm arrives, his spirit has already registered a transformation before his mind can name it. And so, he begins to act in ways that confuse even him, giving and withholding, reaching and retreating, smiling yet guarded. But those who are still inside, those who do not rush to react, can see beyond the confusion. They see the ripple, they feel the wind. There is a story whispered among Zen gardens of a young monk who trained under a master known for his deep silence. One day, the monk asked, "Master, how will I know when the rain is coming if the sky is still clear?" The master replied, "You will not look at the sky. You will listen to the leaves." And so the monk learned to watch the movements of the trees, to feel the change in air pressure, trust the invisible signs. In time, he could predict the rain with greater accuracy than those who stared endlessly at the clouds. So it is with the heart. A man's subtle shifts, his pause, his slight nervousness, the moments he looks at you when you are not looking. These are the rustlings of the leaves. These are signs that his spirit is awakening to something sacred, and he is trying quietly to make sense of it. His retreat is not rejection. His hesitation is not indifference. It is the beginning of reverence. In daily life, this plays out in gentle but telling ways. He may walk slower when beside you, matching your pace without realizing it. He may ask about your smallest preferences, what tea you drink, what time you rise, not because he is gathering facts, but because he wants to create harmony with your rhythm. These are not strategies. They are reflections of emotional attunement, often unconscious. we must learn not to respond only to words, but to presence. When intuition speaks, it does not raise its voice. It invites us into stillness, into awareness, into trust. As the Buddhist teacher Shantideva once said, just as a flash of lightning in the dark of night, so too is insight born for a moment, and seen only by those who are not asleep. And so, when the winds stir between the 9th and 12th of the month, those sacred days of the intuitive veil, sit still. Watch not his speech, but his silence. Listen not for confession, but for hesitation. In those moments, destiny is whispering. It is in the second phase of this journey, after intuition has awakened and stirred the waters, that another pattern emerges. Deeper, more conflicted, and even more revealing. When the emotional bond begins to deepen, so too does the man's fear. He is not only drawn to the woman before him, but confronted by the mirror she holds up to his soul. In her presence, he begins to see not only who she is, but who he must become in order to stand beside her. And so a new psychological pattern unfolds, a dance of fear and desire. This is not a game. It is a test of spiritual readiness. A man in the grip of deep emotional connection often creates space, not to escape, but to assess. He may delay a reply to your message, observe from afar, or ask questions that feel protective. He is not pushing you away. He is trying to measure the depth without diving in too quickly. There is a story told of a tiger cub raised among deer. One day, it saw its reflection in still water and realized it was not like the others. It was drawn to its own strength, terrified of what that strength might mean. In the same way, when a man begins to recognize the magnitude of the woman before him, her softness, her stillness, her mystery, he begins to feel the call to rise, and with that call comes fear. Am I enough? He wonders. Can I carry this? So he steps back, just slightly, to watch her from a safer distance. This is not cowardice. It is a soul asking if it is ready to open fully, to be seen fully, to risk. In nature we see this too. The tide does not come crashing forward without first pulling back. The ocean prepares itself, gathers energy, direction, momentum. It is this withdrawal that gives the next wave its strength. So too with the man who is falling in love. His temporary emotional retreat is a preparation, not always conscious, for the next wave of connection. And if the woman reacts with fear or demand, she interrupts the natural rhythm. But if she remains centered, rooted, calm, like the mountain watching the tide, she creates the safety needed for him to return, not as a boy, but as a man. In everyday life, might look like a few days of less communication, a tone that becomes cautious, a question that reveals insecurity. In these moments, the soul must not react from abandonment, but from wisdom. To hold space is to understand this dance. It is to know that sometimes love speaks by stepping back and tests itself not by doubt, but by retreat. To meet this energy with presence is to say, I see your fear, and I will not feed it. I will meet it with silence, not scarcity. As the Chinese philosopher Zhuangzi once wrote, the wise man is not one who chases the butterfly, who tends his garden so the butterfly comes to him. In spiritual timing, 14th and 15th are days of reflection, the midpoint of the month where both hearts wrestle with uncertainty. These are not days to force clarity. These are days to light a candle, to reflect, to breathe deeply. When one heart retreats, the other must expand in patience. So pause here, breathe. You are not being abandoned. You are being shown the shape of his inner world, the part he does not show to many. And if you can understand this pattern, if you can see beyond the surface, you will not be confused by love, you will be guided by it. These early psychological signs are not mistakes. They are invitations, portals to deeper seeing. If you listen closely, you will begin to hear what the man himself may not even yet understand. When a soul is stirred, It does not always move forward. Sometimes it trembles. Sometimes it tests. Sometimes it hides. But always it reaches. Let your presence be the stillness it reaches for. Let your energy be the mirror that does not distort. And in this way, you do not only love him, you help awaken him. Step by step, through the winds and through the shadows, toward something eternal. In the silent caverns of the human heart lies a sacred place untouched by words. A place where love, once awakened, becomes more than emotion. It becomes recognition. But when a man begins to see a woman not simply as someone he desires, as someone who could change his path forever, the one who could rewrite his story, shape his future, and awaken his deepest potential, the mind often stirs in defense. This recognition is not always met with rejoicing. More often, it is met with trembling. What follows is not an open surrender, but a quiet testing, not of her worth, but of her strength. When a man begins to see a woman as the one, his unconscious mind activates what might appear on the surface as trickery, but is in truth a kind of spiritual examination. He may challenge her, withdraw without cause, or stir emotions that seem out of character, not out of malice, but because the soul, in the presence of something sacred, becomes afraid of breaking what it cannot yet understand. There is a tale told in the temples of the eastern mountains. A master gave his most devoted student a bowl to carry. The bowl was thin, fragile, and already cracked along the edges. The student asked, "Why do you give me something broken?" The master smiled and said, "Because I do not wish to test how you hold something whole. I want to see how you carry something that could fall apart." In the same way, when a man sees a woman as someone whose presence touches eternity, he will often unknowingly test the energy she brings into the moments of tension. He may express doubt, provoke a reaction, or even challenge her values, not because he wishes to harm, but because he is watching to see whether she carries peace or chaos. The sacred feminine does not need to defend. It remains centered. It listens. It watches. It responds only from stillness. A real life expression of this might be found in the beginning of a relationship, when things seem to flow effortlessly, until suddenly he introduces confusion, questioning where things are going, showing signs of insecurity, or turning cold for a moment. To the untrained heart, this feels like rejection, but to the spiritually aware, it is the testing of waters. The question beneath it all is, are you steady when the wind rises? Can your light remain soft when the storm arrives? These moments tend to appear between the 16th and 19th, a period marked by divine friction. It is during this time that energy swirls, not to break bonds, but to purify them. The woman who remains grounded during this time does not become cold or harsh. She becomes clear. She understands that storms do not always mean destruction. Sometimes they bring cleansing. Nature too mirrors this wisdom. Before the mountain stands tall beneath the moonlight, it endures 1,000 storms. It is not praised for how it shines, but for how it stands. Love, when it is true, must weather the trials of uncertainty. It is shaped not in comfort, but in chaos. And the man who brings this energy, consciously or not, is asking, "Can I trust you to remain when all is not clear?" Often, just as the spirit nears devotion, something within the man retreats. This is the paradox of intimacy. Right before the leap into love's ocean, the fear of drowning arises. He does not vanish because he does not care. He vanishes because the moment is too real, too revealing. His inner world is not yet fully prepared for the light that her presence brings. This retreat, this sudden distance, is one of the oldest patterns in love. It is called many things: fear of commitment, emotional withdrawal, cold feet. But on a spiritual level, It is something else entirely. It is the soul recognizing that the temple it is about to enter is sacred. And so it pauses. There is a parable that tells of a pilgrim who traveled far to reach a holy shrine hidden deep within a mountain. After months of walking through forests, climbing through snow and stone, he reached the final steps. But as he stood before the shrine's entrance, he did not enter. Instead, he turned back and sat under a tree. Days passed. When asked why he had come so far only to wait, he said, "My feet have arrived, but my soul is still catching up." In the same way, when a man begins to feel he is nearing emotional surrender, he may suddenly seem distant, uncertain, or distracted. This is not to be feared. It is to be understood. He is gathering himself. He is letting his soul catch up. The spiritual energy during the 20th to 22nd amplifies this phenomenon. These are days of soul recalibration. The masculine essence, which has often been trained to be hard, silent, unyielding, now must prepare to open, to soften, to allow. That is no small shift. For some, it feels like stepping off a cliff. And so, the man may disappear, not into the arms of another, but into the solitude of his own mind. He may cancel plans, stop reaching out. He may even express confusion. To the spiritually awakened woman, this is not a threat. It is a sign that the moment is near. The old self is crumbling. The new self is forming. And transformation, though sacred, is always tender. In daily life, this might be seen in a man who, after weeks of closeness, suddenly speaks of needing space. Or a man who brings up old wounds just when things are deepening. He is not sabotaging the connection. He is preparing to meet it with honesty. The tides of the sea show us this same rhythm. Just before the great wave crashes upon the shore, the water draws back. The beach stands bare, the sand exposed. And then, with unstoppable force, the wave returns, not to destroy, but to embrace. As the mystic Rumi once said, "Don't get lost in your pain. Know that one day your pain will become your cure." In the same way, a man's withdrawal may not be his rejection. It may be the path through which he returns with deeper presence, stronger intention, and quieter reverence. What is required in these moments is not pursuit, but presence, not explanation, but understanding. The woman reacts from fear, she closes the door. But if she remains rooted, if she becomes the calm to his storm, the stillness to his chaos, she offers him the very thing his spirit is reaching for: sanctuary. So do not be alarmed by his absence. Do not rush to fill the silence. Instead, light a candle, speak to the moon, and trust the sacred delay. For love that is true must first retreat and then return, not as a question, but as an answer. The journey between two souls is not made in grand declarations. It is made in these sacred pauses, these quiet storms, these unseen turns in the path, and if we learn to honor them, to breathe through them, and not resist their rhythm, then we discover a truth older than time, that love, when it is real, does not come all at once. It comes in waves, and we must be still enough to receive it when the heart can no longer contain its depth and words seem too fragile to carry what one feels. Something ancient begins to rise, the language of symbols in the still chambers of a man's soul. When he is overwhelmed by affection but untrained in expression, he turns not to speech but to gesture. A glance that lingers, unexpected offering a subtle change in his daily routine. These are not random acts. They are the footprints of a heart speaking in a tongue older than time. Men who are deeply moved yet emotionally guarded often resort to symbolic behavior. These expressions might seem simple. An invitation to meet his family, a small gift chosen with care, or the way he seeks your counsel on matters of significance. But their weight lies not in the act itself, but in the energy behind it. These gestures are offerings, not proclamations, and those who are attuned to such language will hear them with the heart, not the ear. There is an old Zen story of a student who asked his master, "Why do you never praise my growth?" The master said nothing. That evening, as the student entered the temple garden, he saw a lantern placed beside his favorite meditation stone. It was not spoken, placed with intention. The student smiled. He understood. The master had noticed and had chosen to honor him not with words but with light. So it is with the man who cannot yet name what he feels, but begins to build small altars to your presence. He may adjust his life subtly to include you. He may begin preparing for a future where you are present, even if he does not say so. He may fix something in your home, or walk you to your car, or remember the way you like your tea. These are not small things. These are his way of saying, "You are becoming part of me." This becomes especially apparent during the spiritual phase between the 23rd and 24th. Days marked by heightened sensitivity and divine noticing. During this time, pay attention not to what is loud, but to what is consistent. Love that is real will often arrive quietly, wearing the garments of presence and intention. In the same way, the moon does not announce its arrival, but lights the entire sky, so too does a man's affection reveal itself not in declaration, but in the way he gently rearranges his world to make room for you. In nature, the bee does not tell the flower it loves it. It visits daily. It returns without asking. It nourishes and is nourished. In this quiet exchange, life is sustained. Love, too, thrives in this energy, where meaning is placed inside action, and action becomes a form of silent reverence. To miss these symbolic gestures is to miss the forest for the tree. For the soul speaks in signs, and when the eyes of the spirit are open, even the smallest offering becomes a doorway into deeper knowing. As the Chinese sage Sanzi once wrote, "The gentleman is cautious in what he chooses to show, for he knows that what is seen is but the echo of what is hidden." In this way, a man's symbolic acts are the echoes of his deepest longings, not yet spoken, but already true. And so, as you move through these sacred days, learn to read the language of care. If he shares his world with you, brings you into his quiet rituals, or begins to look for your reflection in his future, these are not mere kindnesses. They are the soul's way of reaching out. Now we come to the final sign, the most mysterious and perhaps the most misunderstood. Just as love reaches its highest point of emotional charge, a strange silence may fall. The man may pull away completely, without reason or warning. The connection that once felt magnetic now echoes with absence. And yet, this disappearance is not always a departure. It is often the final trial of transformation. When something becomes too precious, too real, it can trigger a man's oldest fears, not of you, but of himself. A man may withdraw not because he no longer desires the woman, because her presence demands a version of him he is still becoming. And in this moment, soul, unprepared to step fully into light, retreats into shadow, hoping that time will prepare it for the magnitude of what it has found. There is a parable from a small monastery nestled in the pine mountains of the east. A disciple was on the verge of receiving the master's final teaching. A secret scroll said to hold the essence of the way. When the time came, the disciple vanished. Days passed, weeks. The master said nothing. One morning, before sunrise, the disciple returned. Eyes weary, he bowed low and said, "I could not receive the scroll until I emptied myself. I was too full of who I had been to carry who I was becoming." This is the nature of the disappearing act. The man steps back not to punish or confuse, but because he senses, even if he cannot name it, this love demands his full self. And he must now go into solitude to confront the parts of him that are unready. He may fear he will fail you. He may doubt his worthiness. He may believe that to continue would only break something sacred. And so he disappears. These moments often arise around the 25th, the final spiritual gate of the month, where truth either blooms or falls away. For many, this period feels painful, like the sudden withering of a flower just as it was about to open. For those who see with spiritual eyes, this is not the end. It is the chrysalis, the becoming. In everyday life, this could look like unanswered messages, a cancelled meeting, or a sudden cooling of energy. The change feels stark, but often it is the threshold. If he returns, it will not be as the man who left. It will be as the man who has wrestled with himself and chosen. Nature mirrors this path. Before the caterpillar becomes the butterfly, it vanishes into stillness. It dissolves inside the cocoon. What seems like death is, in truth, the sacred pause. The old form must end before the new can begin. And this is what many do not understand. Love does not grow without this pause. It does not deepen without disappearance. Because only in solitude can the man meet himself fully, and only then can he come back with something to offer that is not fear, but devotion. As the ancient teacher Lao Tzu once whispered, when the heart is empty, the Tao enters freely. In the same way, when a man empties himself of distraction, ego, and doubt, he creates space for something real to begin. So if you are in this phase, the waiting, the silence, do not panic, do not cling. Light a candle, write in your journal, tend to your soul. For if this connection is fated, it will not pass you. And when he returns, you will know it by the way he sees you, not as a passing comfort, but as a mirror of his sacred path. The journey of love, when it is deep and true, does not move in straight lines. It spirals, retreats to gather strength. It tests not to hurt, but to reveal. And in these final stages, when the soul feels exposed, it will often hide just before it is ready to step into light. Let your spirit remain quiet, even if your mind grows loud. Do not chase what is already moving toward you in divine timing. And remember, silence is not absence. It is preparation. For love that is written by the stars will always find its voice, even after the longest silence, even after the darkest night. When it returns whole, and you will meet it not with questions, but with the quiet knowing that you were always becoming ready too. Beloved seeker, you now know the unseen signs, the sacred timings, the psychological echoes of a heart overcome by soul-level love. This journey is not for the faint. It is for the initiated, the one who watches quietly, moves intuitively, and listens not just with ears, but with presence. When the student is ready, fate does not whisper, it roars. Let this message be your scroll, your map, your moment of clarity. Watch the dates, follow the winds, read the silence, and remember, when the heart is true and the soul is prepared, even the universe bows to divine timing.